guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy Boulanger, and up next on the GM, we're going to be talking about 2023 Baltimore Ravens roster locks as we enter week one of the preseason. Do me a quick favor, hit like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you get updates when we upload new content. Let's go. So, what's the purpose of this video, Boulanger? Really honest and truly, there's no purpose, just for conversation. We have basically completed what I would say training camp, right? I think once preseason starts, we're kind of in just preseason, not training camp anymore. So for me, in my mind, in my thinking, training camp is over, and so now we're in the preseason phase. And so as we completed the last practice, the same guys are standing out. From yesterday's practice, Lamar Jackson still balling, still shining, still dealing, still accurate, still throwing some deep touchdowns yesterday, which is really good to see. And some guys are emerging, um, especially this week. Some guys are really emerging as putting themselves in prime position to be a roster lock. And so I'm going to identify those guys who I believe are locks as we enter the week one game. And then we'll update our roster locks after week two. But at this point in time, I believe there's 44 guys, roughly 44 guys, give or take one or two who are roster locks. So as we go position by position, we'll keep a running tally of the number of guys who are locks. So let's start with the quarterback position. I believe that Lamar Jackson, of course, and Tyler Huntley, Pro Bowler, is the locks at quarterback. There's no reason for me to think that Johnson is in real competition to uproot Tyler Huntley at that backup position, unless the Baltimore Ravens have something up their sleeve to deal Tyler Huntley to another destination. If they don't have any plans to deal Tyler Huntley, he is a lock. I don't think there's any real competition there. I think Johnson was just brought in as a camp arm, so to speak. And I think Anthony Brown has a better chance to make this roster than Johnson because Anthony Brown could actually be slotted in as the third quarterback, but be on the practice squad. Now, practice squad guys, I'm not actually putting as the roster locks, of course. I'm just talking about I think he has a better chance to be affiliated with the Ravens this year. Let's jump to the offensive line. So that's two from the quarterback position. Offensive line, I believe Ronnie Stanley, of course, John Simpson, left guard, Tyler Lindenbaum, center, right guard, um, Kevin Zeitler, Morgan Moses at the right tackle position. Those are the five starters as we stand today, probably. Daniel Falele, backup right tackle. Um, I think that Patrick Ricard is going to be slotted somewhere along that offensive line. And I'm saying Ricard over Ben Cleveland. Salah is going to make this roster, and also Patrick McCarry, of course. So that's nine guys slotted into that offensive line position. I don't think Ben Cleveland makes this roster if he doesn't have a good showing uh, after game one, only because they have to find a place for Patrick Ricard. Ben Mason has shown up at that fullback position. He's been out in routes. He's been blocking. He's been doing all the things necessary to do to stand out. And I think that he's been consistently in um, articles, camp reporting that, he's been performing well. And he's cheaper, significantly cheaper. So I think that they're going to try and find a place to put Patrick Ricard to keep him on this roster because he can play dual roles. He can be a fullback. He can play tight end. He can play receiver, as we saw last year. and so, and because of his size, he certainly could slot in on that offensive line position. So I'm going Patrick Ricard over Ben Cleveland. So that's nine plus the two from quarterback position. That we up to 11. If we jump back to the running back position, I'm going to name three guys as locks, and that's Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and Justice Hill. Okay. I'm saying those guys are locks. Even though J.K. Dobbins has not shown up yet, John Harbaugh seems to feel maybe a 70-30, 60-40 confidence that J.K. Dobbins will be there soon at at some point in the future. And so hopefully that does happen. If J.K. Dobbins does show up and doesn't hold out, or if he's not injured, or whatever's really going on with him, he's a lock. So I'm putting those three. There's certainly another guy I would like to see make this roster, but again, we're talking about locks today. So that takes us up to 14. I'm going to say Ben Mason at this point in time is a roster lock at that fullback position. I am, because Ben Mason, with his size, his athleticism, his ability to catch the ball, that kind of thing, he can also play a dual role, both fullback and probably some tight end if need be. And so I'm going to make him a roster lock at this point in time, which is why they moved Patrick Ricard, or they're going to try him out at the offensive line, because I think Mason is a lock. So that takes us up to 15. When we jump outside and we look at the tight end position, or maybe not outside, but at an extension of the line, we got Andrews, Likely, and Charlie Kolar. Those are locks, no question. Um, I think when we jump outside now with the wide receiver group, I think there's 5 locks. That took us from 14 to 17 with the tight end group, and with 5 right here, that's going to take us to 22. And I think those locks are, of course, OBJ, Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, Devin Duvernay, and Zay Flowers. I think that those are the roster locks. And let me grab Laquan Treadwell, and let me go ahead and slide him into number 6. Laquan Treadwell has been showing up repeatedly, at least in 2 or 3 reports per week, with these long touchdown plays in practice and things like that. And so he sounds like he has emerged into that 6th spot. And for right now, he's locking that one down. So I think Laquan Treadwell at this point in time is a roster lock. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Tariq Black has to say, what Shamar Bridges has to say in preseason game 1. So that takes us up to 23. As we jump over to the defensive side of the ball, we start in the trenches with the defensive line. Metabuke, Michael Pierce, Broderick Washington are your 3 starters. Travis Jones and Brent Irvine are going to be your backups. That takes us to 28. I don't have any question about those guys making the roster again, unless injury happens. But at this point in time, those are locks. That takes us to 28. When we jump back behind that defensive line, we're going to the interior linebacker position. Smith, Queen, Harrison, Trenton Simpson, and I'm gonna go ahead and lock in Delshawn Phillips. If I'm pronouncing his name correctly, I think he's a lock. I think he's done enough in this training camp to shine. He's been in the reports a couple of different times, but also he's kind of a special teams ace of sorts, him and Malik Harrison. So I'm gonna lock them in at that position. That takes us from 28 to 33. If we jump outside to the outside linebacker position, I'm just gonna name 3 guys out here. Unfortunately, I'm going David Ajabo, Odafe Owe, and Tavius Robinson. Now, that takes us to 36, with the exception of Tyus Bowser. I'm not saying he doesn't make this roster, but there is no real indication on what his injury is, how severe it is, or when he'll be back. It doesn't sound like there's a timetable. So right now, he could start the season on the PUP list, and so I'm not going to put him on in a roster lock position. If he's healthy, yeah, he's there, but he may very well be on the PUP list to start the season. So I'm not going to include him in this tally at this point in time. When we jump back to the secondary, let's go with safeties first. I think there's 4 locks right there. Of course, that is Marcus Williams, Kyle Hamilton, Geno Stone, and Brandon Stevenson. These 4 guys have performed well in this training camp. Not era, but time. And I think that those guys are locks. I know Geno Stone has been hurt for a little bit now. Not sure what his injury is necessarily, and I'm not sure what his timetable is to return. But there is a guy knocking on the door, Gino. If you don't get healthy, Jaquez Amos, who is knocking on the door saying, "Hey, let me in." And so I think he could get in that spot if Gino isn't healthy and ready to start the season, or ready to go by the end of the preseason. And so those four locks takes us from 36, maybe it was 37, I can't remember, up to 40. Okay. When we jump outside, of course, we got Marlon Humphrey, Rock Yassin. Now the cornerback position is pretty sketchy because there's a lot of injury at that position. A lot of guys who are hurt and out, and some of these guys don't have timetables to return. And so when I say locks right now, this is with the consideration of injuries included. So we're going Marlon Humphrey, we're going Rock Ya-Sin, I'm going Kabalu Kelly only because the Baltimore Ravens do not like to waste picks. I'm going Kevin Seymour as roster locks. Okay. That takes us up to either 43 or 44, and I'm going to include our Darius Washington at the nickel position as a lock at this point in time. That takes us up to either 44 or 45. So those are the 44 or 45. I lost count somewhere along the way, but those are the 44 or 45 guys that I believe are roster locks at this point in time. But there are some guys who. Oh, and Jalen Armour Davis, excuse me. I forgot him. That will take us up to 45 or 46. And so again, that doesn't mean that there are 7 or 8 positions um, um, open. That just means there are some injuries right now to several positions. Again, like I said, Tyus Bowser's out, and the Baltimore Ravens probably will bring in a veteran edge rusher. And then there are several guys out at the cornerback position. Arthur Millette's out. JD is out right now. Of course, Rock Ya-Sin is out. Pepe Williams is out. And so the injuries are piling up at that cornerback position. And so they may bring somebody in a little later on. But I think those guys that I did mention in those position groups are roster locks. Let me know if there's somebody that you think should be on this roster lock list. And also throw in why you think they should be on that list. I would love to see your comments. So listen, I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM, and we're out.